Hello and welcome, everyone. We're so happy to have you today. My name is Cheryl. I am your TNN host for this evening. This is our second one back, um, and we're still waiting on a few more people. So again, just hold on for a couple more minutes. I know we have quite a few that registered and signed up today. And I just wanted to give everybody find the Zoom link and make sure if you have any questions to write it down, and at the end we will go ahead and get them answered. All right, let's see. Okay, so you know what? Let's just go ahead and start, and everybody else can join when they all have the moment to join us. So we're excited to have another phenomenal guest speaker with us today, Robin. Robin, if you are there, please wave. Here, please wave to everybody. Hold on one second. Okay, Robin, can you hear us?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. All right, let's see here. Oops. All right. So sorry, my computer is going a little crazy right now. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go over a few housekeeping pieces right now, and I'm going to share my screen with you. Hold on one second here. All right. Thank you for being so patient, you guys. All right. Let's see. So again, welcome to the Nomadic Network. It's a community of travelers inspiring everybody to see the world. It was founded by Nomadic Matt, and now it's owned and operated and ran by Lisa, the amazing Lisa Field. We've hosted over 250 virtual events, and this is the second one since we've been back. And of course, you can follow us on our website at the nomadicnetwork.com. And we have a lot of upcoming tour dates that's available already, as well as virtual happy hours. So make sure to sign up and register for that. Again, there's everything from Morocco to Greece to Turkey. So there's a lot of epic community tours that's happening. And let's see here. Sorry, people are joining back in. And this is all the ways that you can join us on Instagram. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can sign up for the virtual events like you've done so already. And again, the community tours. Also, oh, hold on. Sorry, I need to let everybody in that's joining us. Okay. So we have a lot of upcoming events that we mentioned. The next one is in 2 weeks, October 24th, Death Beyond Distance, Insights into Enriching Travel and Life. Another one on November 7th, as well as November 14th. So go ahead and just check out the website and register if you can. All right. And again, there's the community tours: India, Vietnam, Greece, Peru, and Morocco. I've been to all of them except India and Morocco, so I'm definitely going to go to one of those events, if not both. And lastly, thank you for joining us. And before we begin, I'm going to introduce our lovely speaker today, Robin. So give me a minute here. All right. So Robin is a mentor, speaker, and educator helping souls around the world build a healthy and wealthy travel lifestyle. She's a seasoned traveler with over a decade of experience exploring 44 plus countries and counting. With a wealth of knowledge gained from navigating diverse environments, she has forged lifelong connections and experienced profound personal growth. I love that. She started a podcast, published her own bilingual book, and has built resources and support systems bolstered by her experiences living in 8 countries as an expat. She has now founded OCW, a platform dedicated to empowering others to turn their vision boards into real life adventures. Her mission is to help individuals let go of the barriers holding them back and see the world, earn from anywhere, and also live a life that sets your soul on fire. I love that, Robin. So, Robin, go ahead and share your screen with us, and let's start the presentation.
All right, can everybody see well the screen? Cheryl, is that visible?
Yes.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for that introduction. Of course, we're here today to talk about overcoming travel fears. As Cheryl has already nicely explained, travel has not just been a passion of mine, but it's literally been my life. I actually started living abroad when I was 12 years old, and I think that has shaped a lot and obviously made my travel bug that I already had as a kid reading books about exploring and seeing the world and different places way worse. I think what's been important in my journey is the fact that I've been a bit of everything within the travel lifestyle category, you may say. I've been an expat, a nomad, a backpacker, and now also an immigrant in a new country, which is Canada, but I'm originally Italian. I'm a founder of Our Connected World, as Cheryl has nicely shared already. I'm a speaker, an author, and an educator. I believe a lot in education, both language wise, travel wise, and career wise. My background is in psychology, business, and marketing. And with no further ado, let's get into, well, why you're here, which is talking about overcoming travel fears. And I want you all to start today, this session, with actually facing. Everybody says facing the fear, but I want to go one level deeper than that. And I want to say, let's go and understand our fear today together. So this exercise, to introduce the session today, is really for you to start identifying your personal travel anxieties or fears, because that's the only way we can start to understand it and hence recognize the root cause and hence take those fears away and turn them into something that allows us to embrace the joy of travel. So here is an example of what you can do. You can write it on paper, digitally, whatever you love and prefer. You can have like a simple column, and I'm going to give you about 1 minute to write down your thoughts. On one side is the fears, like the way you want to describe them, and then, or name them actually. And then on the other column, write a sentence, try to describe how that fear makes you feel. Like that fear, what kind of feelings arise with that fear? And I'll give you a minute. I'll check my timer now and I'll let you write it all down and then we'll go back to this later. 20 seconds. Okay, and done. I hope you had the time. Also, I get FYI, I see nothing and nobody when I share my screen. So, Cheryl, let me know, give me a sign if there's any issue. But I hope you had enough time to write down some of these fears, because there is definitely some common fears. Now, you may find some of this you wrote down, or maybe all of it, or maybe none of it. Everybody is so different, the journey we are. And the fears, we're going to touch upon it a little bit more, but the fears are really connected also to our own journey, right? But some common fears that are connected to travel are fear of flying, language barriers, which sometimes are also connected to another fear, which is safety concerns, right? You don't understand what's going on around you, and so on. Getting lost, not finding your way, cultural differences or having to deal with those, and then not making friends. And the last one is particularly big for those who plan to be a bit longer term on the road, whether as a backpacker, a nomad, or just simply because you're taking a gap year or something. So today, I really wanted to touch upon some practical tips on how you can overcome them. But what I want you to understand before we dive in the tips is that all of this, all of these guys I just talked about, they all have something in common, which is the fact that they have to do with something that is unknown. So before going into a bit of the psychology of it, because of course some of my background sometimes comes back, I want to share this quote with you. Fear is excitement without breath. It's from Robert Heller. And the reason why I love this quote for this session is because this is true. Fear is excitement. But he said without breath, because it obviously sounds more poetic than what I'm about to tell you. But fear is excitement without knowledge. And this is because of this beautiful, beautiful organ of ours, which is the brain. The brain is our enemy as much as our best friend. The brain is the reason we're able to do all the beautiful things we can do, from creative to science, but it's also what can create limitations within ourselves. Self-limiting beliefs are one of those, but the other ones is creating thoughts that are in a way negative, such as fearful thoughts. But the reality is that they are thoughts. And as such, they don't mean that they are necessarily true. Because the thing is that what happens when we don't know what's on the other side, so when we're going towards something that is unknown, that can be a culture, a place, moving abroad, literally anything that your brain hasn't experienced yet is unknown, which becomes a danger, a threat. And then when you have that situation, your brain simply just goes back to square one, survival mode. It wants to protect us because that's its main purpose. And that's how that unknown turns into danger. But is it true? No, it isn't. Most of the time, it really isn't true that that thought means it is actually dangerous. And so, as much as our brain is beautiful and powerful, sometimes we need to learn how to overcome our own thoughts and discern what is reality versus what is just a thought. And this is something that I invite you, and we're going to do a bit of an exercise. So there's a reason why we just did that at the beginning of the session, because as much as it can be scary, you're like, oh my God, my brain is tricking me. And, I think this is something that is, dangerous, or I shouldn't do it, but it's not really real. It's just trying to protect me. As much as we have that, it also means that we have the power to change that thought. And this is something that, especially if you guys are into mindfulness and so on, you probably do it if you meditate, if you do journaling and things like that. It is how we deal with our own thoughts and our own facing challenges, right? And the beauty of it is, and it's a bit of a journey in itself, is starting to reframe those thoughts. And a big thing is about reframing negative thoughts into something positive. And the reason is that we have fear and a connotation to fear as something that has to necessarily be negative and bad. But a lot of the times, and especially when fear is connected to travel in this case, and simply like, again, being scared because you simply haven't been there. So you don't know what's on the other side of the door. those moments are actually on the other side of the door. That's actually where you find your personal growth, where you find the biggest benefits of travel, which is self discovery and also learning more about our world and how we live together. And let's take an example. We talked about getting lost, right? So, again, I'm taking an example. This is something you wrote before. How can you reframe it? It's basically looking at, I want you to look, and when you can, whether while we're chatting now or at the end of the session, I really want you to take those and actually write something positive. Like make a third column and write the best scenario of that fear. Okay, that's the worst scenario. What's the best scenario? So for example, maybe you end up having an unexpected adventure. Maybe you get lost and you meet amazing people and you end up going, I don't know, for a swim at midnight and feel alive again. I don't know. I'm just saying examples, right? So that's the best scenario, right, of getting lost. Another one could be also that you get lost, but then you get out of that situation, you find your way back. And so you start learning that you actually can trust your instincts. And a beautiful thing about traveling, and the more you travel, it really has to do, I would say, like in lingo, like street smart, right? I think like by traveling, you really build on your soft skills in a way that is uncomparable. And the more I can share like my experience, the more I've traveled, the more I've learned to trust my gut, and the more my gut has also been trained to be correct, because you get yourself in certain experiences and you start to have a different connection even to yourself. And I guess this is also in, why I founded Our Connected World, because it's all about connections, connecting with yourself, with others, and with places. And so overcoming these fears is really important so that you can actually get those benefits from travel. And so I invite you to challenge yourself. For example, you don't have to, if you're particularly, if this is a particular fear of yours of getting lost, example, right? You can apply to different ones, and we'll go into different ones later. Challenge yourself even at home. Just go somewhere new, and maybe don't take your GPS at first, and just try to orient yourself. Explore new neighborhoods, right? Or if you're traveling and you have a trip planned, do this over there. Explore somewhere that is not a hot spot for tourists, or explore and kind of just walk around the streets of, I don't know, Rome or Barcelona, and just kind of wander for a bit without a map, and see what happens, and stop in places that just tinkle your curiosity. Use public transportation, especially in certain, not everywhere, but in certain places. That's the best way to go around, right? If it's available, go for it. Just try that way, which is something that maybe you don't necessarily do it all the time, because especially at home, maybe you have a job, you need to go from A to B in a certain amount of time. And especially if you're, I would say, in North America, the car is probably the main transport you use most of the time. Follow your curiosity. And this is something, like I always say, stay curious, follow your curiosity, because it really is also like a training for yourself, to going back to trusting yourself and trusting your instinct. If you're curious about it, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. So even just be curious back in your city. There must be a place you haven't seen yet. There must be a cuisine you haven't tried yet, or a new restaurant you haven't tried yet. And like even just starting inserting these unknown pieces in your daily life now, even without traveling or trying it on your first trip, that alone is a way to start telling your brain that it's all okay. And again, getting lost can really be an opportunity, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that it will have to be a problem to solve, right? Not everything is always the worst case scenario. And overall, what we're going to do, and in general with a lot of this fear, is we're challenging our comfort zone. So let's start now already. Try these new experiences, try unfamiliar foods, engage with locals, like engage, I don't know, smile to a stranger, say hi to a stranger on the metro, I don't know. Try these little things in your daily life with common sense, but try these little things already, or with your first trip. And another thing, another point that I found, travel really puts you in a different mentality while you're traveling and on the road. You start becoming more spontaneous. You don't have all these daily duties, strict schedules and whatnot. And that opens up the opportunity for you to be more spontaneous. And so that is very, very important. I think somebody wrote something. And that is very, very important because I have to say, like, a lot of times from like traveling and just saying yes spontaneously, it was not something that I planned. For example, I was in Hawaii, and I my tour that I wanted to like see the sharks, and that was canceled, and I went all the way on the other side of the island. And I didn't really have a way to move. By the way, I didn't have a car or anything. I was budget traveling kind of thing. And then I found out, oh, there's a surfing lesson around here. I just like kind of got lost in that area and North Shore, and I found this random like surf lesson. It was amazing. I met this great Japanese couple that kind of like started chatting with me, and they were lovely. And then they gave me a ride back, like things like that. Where it's like it was 100% not planned, and then I just got lost, went on a different tour, and I met really cool people. So this is something that really, really helps, like trying to be spontaneous as well, and leaving room for being spontaneous and trying that out. Okay, now let's go in some of the fears I mentioned. Overcoming fear of flying. So there's three things that you can do about it. I mean, this is a definitely a tougher one because it's also you get like an actual physical reaction as well. So something that helps, and I have to say, like, as I'm growing up and I'm getting older, I have unlocked fears that I didn't have when I was younger. And one of them is like turbulences. I found them not hilarious, but I found them really fun when I was younger, probably up until I was like 25 or something. And I found them really fun. And it's like, oh, this is great. And I was like, I don't understand why people fear this. This is amazing. It's so much fun. And a bit of a thrill. And now I'm like, oh my God. And I can feel it that I'm starting to like getting more on the panicky area when that happens. But one thing that has helped me is actually educating myself about why a turbulence happens. So that's something that you can do. So, for example, basically, I learned that actually turbulence is just you're in a tent, so you're safe, and it's like as if what was the analogy was like the plane is like in a jelly, and then because of the current, the jelly moves, but it doesn't mean that the plane is actually going anywhere or like down or something. And so most of the time, you actually don't have to fear turbulences. And so that helps me. And that's definitely something that I think of every time that I start feeling like I'm panicking, especially because I travel a lot and I need to fly. So I don't want to start having a fear of flying all of a sudden. But yeah, and also like flight safety statistics. I mean, it is one of the one of the safest ways. There's definitely, from a statistics perspective, there's definitely other transportations, transportation methods that are have more accidents if we want to look at that. But the other thing is also, and this goes back to like coping and dealing with your own thoughts, is relaxation techniques, deep breathing, visualization, right? That can help. And then also distracting yourself, right? If you have to fly, and a lot of the times there's also not another option. It's tried. That do books help? Do books distract you? If you like, focus on that. Movies, puzzles, right? Anything that can help you stay distracted and not having to deal with that feeling. Conquering language barriers, and this is something at my heart. I help people also with languages, and specifically Spanish and Italian. Um, and it's something that I often talk about. And actually, the last session I had with the Nomadic Network, and I had the pleasure to host, was around languages as well, because it is also connected on safety and how people feel safe in a place, because just based on the fact that you understand what's going around you, and in case you need to, you can communicate with others. As somebody who's lived in different places and at first only spoke one language and I couldn't communicate with people, it's really hard not being able to communicate or feeling like you're not understood. And so it's totally normal. Of course, you can't learn all the languages of the whole world at once, but something that can really help, and I always incentivize people to try, is just basic phrases, and even bring like a quick, whether digital, if you love printing, print it out, like almost like a cheat sheet for like words and phrases in that language, especially around safety and health and things like that. Also, nowadays, we have the beauty of language apps or translation apps. So, especially when going, for example, let's say you live in the US or Canada or in Europe, right? Our alphabet is also very, very different, Romanic alphabet versus the alphabet that you would find for, the Japanese language or Thai and so on. And so, especially going on certain to certain destinations, that like the writing in itself can also be more challenging, right? So using something like Google Translate, which also can translate like menus, it can translate signs for you and stuff like that, can already take away some of that fear and some of that barrier for you. And then if you're more into it, you can always use, Duolingo. I always say if you actually want to learn a bit more, you should, probably tutor and actually do a course around it. But Duolingo is great for at least having some basics, even though it's not that you're automatically going to be fluent the day after starting Duolingo. So for the nonverbal communication part, it's something that we forget about. We forget that we're all human. And I think this is the beautiful part of the nonverbal communication side of things. We're actually all humans, and like the amount, and maybe now I'm going to be stereotypical about my where I'm from, which is Italy. We talk a lot with our hands, and more particular, we even have our own special signs, I guess. But there's so much I can do, and like I found it, especially in places I really had no idea how to speak the language. I always try to learn it and so on, but sometimes you just find yourself that that's the last resort. But let's not forget about it. Facial expression, gestures, and even learning some of the, maybe differences of certain non-verbal communication. So, for example, going to India, for example, when I was in India, where like yes is no, like with the head, and it's basically like the opposite that it is in Western culture. And so let's not forget about it. Again, I'm really happy about it because we are all hand gesture people in Italy. It can go a long way, and I can really see it with people just being like, "Oh, this and that food," right? It's there's a human denominator in a lot of this, and in a lot of what you will find out with traveling. Now, safety concerns. I mean, obviously, these are very important, and everything I said before, also about getting out of your comfort zone, it's always within the common sense of things, right? But my philosophy is that just again, just because it's somewhere else, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily more dangerous. And actually, having been in a lot of different countries and a lot of different continents, I also can say that in general, like the majority of the people are there also to help you in case you need to. Like I've met such amazing people, and I've met more amazing people than none. And my conclusion from a lot of my travels is that, and I cannot say a bad word, but being a bad person, let's say that way, is a personality and not a nationality. And really believe that there's a lot of human kindness out there that we shouldn't forget about. But in general, also, it's about doing a bit of work when you go somewhere in order to feel safe. And I would say, I would add to this as somebody who's also been a solo female traveler, especially if you're going solo. And as a woman, I think there's other safety concerns that come up for us. But in general, what I find really helpful, and again, I'm all about being spontaneous and stuff, but I do my research before the destination, whether it is also just about what's going on, about things that I should know from also a cultural perspective, and so on. It's really important, areas to avoid, talking to people who've been there, talking to people locals. So communities like the nomadic network, those are great for that because you'll definitely know somebody or meet somebody within those kind of associations that will tell you, hey, I've been there, and look, like this is what I would suggest, right? So really research, ask people, especially if you're going solo. And then investing in travel insurance, I always say have a good travel insurance. It's just a peace of mind overall. So I would definitely never forget to do that if you don't have it. There's a lot of different online insurances that you can go to, and some of them, for example, World Nomads, they actually do it also for just a month. So this is something that I used when I was like backpacking, just for like 1 or 2 months. And then you can cover yourself just for when you're on the road, so you don't have to look at it as an expense for the rest of the year. Stay aware of your surroundings. This is, to be honest, not just a travel tip, but it's also a general tip, right? Pretty self-explanatory. And again, trust your instincts. And the more more work you do about your thoughts and your own self-awareness, the more you will also learn to distinguish whether it's, like a fear, the way we said, like, oh, it's just a no, to, okay, no, this actually stings. And a lot of those times, like, I feel like my gut feeling has gotten me out of a lot of situations that could have gone a lot differently if I didn't have. So really start to be more in tune. And I think this is part of why traveling becomes so important for connecting with yourself, and not just with obviously people and places, which is super important, and nature, but like it really is about also learning a lot about you, and trusting yourself, and really using that muscle that we don't necessarily use every day otherwise. And now making friends. I mean, we're humans. We love to hang out. We love to be with other people, and so on. And so there are ways to make friends, and especially if you're thinking about solo trips or so on. There's a saying, it's like you're never traveling, like you're never feeling lonely even though you're traveling alone. And that's because there's a lot of different ways, and sometimes I would say, even I would go to the extent even that when you travel solo, you tend to make more friends because you're alone, and so people are like you're in a way less threatening, I guess, than like a group of 10 people or something. And it just means that you have to make a bit more effort. And that is whether you're moving abroad or you're traveling, it just means more effort, and that's okay, because the outcome and the reward will be greater than any effort you need to put at the beginning. But there's little things you can do. So, for example, staying in social accommodations, hostels, of course. But if you don't like hostels, there's also ways to be in guest houses, even sometimes Airbnb, right? Um, if you don't want to, and you want to have just your private space, which is obviously totally fine. And I think everybody's in different phases of life, but also in different wishes of type of travel. Join group activities. That's another way to meet other people. That those are great. I always do them. Like, I'm now in a phase that I'm not actually staying in dorms anymore because I'm older. But I still would love to join group activities and meet people that way. There's a lot of social apps nowadays that you can, go on and find friends, right? It's not just for dating. There's also like travel buddies, apps like Fairy Trail, for example. There's a lot of different ways. Or again, go on a group tour, like what was mentioned at the beginning, right, with the nomadic network, and just joining from the get go such group travel kind of tours. So this way you're not alone, and you can still travel, and you can make beautiful friendships on the way. Um, Now, the last 2 points that I wanted to mention is really like going back to a bit of that, effort that you need to put at first, which is striking up conversations, right? And being open and friendly. And a lot of the times, it will probably be you who has to do that first step. If you're feeling like you want to, meet people and so on, it will probably be you. And I know it can be hard also because everybody has a different personality. There's people who are more introverted as well, which becomes a bit harder to do, especially at first. But you kind of adapt, and you kind of, the more you do it, the more you learn that actually other people feel that way. And you will probably have somebody who's slightly more introverted than you being like, oh my God, I'm so glad. I'm so glad you talked to me first. Because I also was looking for friends. And then, especially in certain scenarios, like common areas, at a hostel, cafes, local events, you will always have some sort of people, whether it's a meetup or whatever, like you will always have some people who are there for the same reason as you, which is have a good time, explore, but also make new friends. So, because I want to leave a lot of space for discussion here. So let's go into the final tips. I want to give some don'ts, and then let's go into the do's. So I totally understand, but if it's something that you can overcome, and you feel you can overcome, and you want to work on, then don't avoid flying altogether. Simply because there is some destinations that you have to fly to, and there's not really an option. So balance out what's greater interest for you. Is the fear greater than what you want from a travel perspective? Don't rely on alcohol sedatives, especially if this is related to, again, flying. I mean, some people suffers of, actually my mom, she suffers from, the pressure of the air, so that's a different discussion, because that you need some sort of medication to help you with that. to not feel sick. But if it's from the fear of flying, done. And the reason why I'm saying that is like, sure, it can be a way, but again, what we're talking about is actually going to the root of the problem. So by doing alcohol or sedatives, you're just putting a band-aid to what is a fear, right? Um, this is something we talked about before at the beginning, fixating on negative what ifs, right? Negative scenarios. What if it's going to be the best scenario? And one thing that I really feel traveling has gifted me is, which I can then apply, even like career wise, work wise, personal life wise, in other parts of my life, is that you realize it will be fine. It will work out. And it's such a, I don't know, it's such a warm, heart warm feeling. Can find the adjective for that. But yeah. Also another thing, expecting everyone to speak English. I think sometimes, I mean, most of the times, especially like in the backpacking kind of areas and so on, sure, it's international, so the majority will probably speak English, but otherwise, probably not if you're not going to an English speaking country, right? And even if there is a lot of, again, going back to language learning, there's a lot that it can come from learning the language and being able to even say two words to a local in their language. Like it just puts you under a different, totally different light for them. And then it will also change the experience you will have. And this goes also into like the reason why some of us fear speaking another language or fear other languages. It's because again, it's going out of our comfort zone, and it makes us, because it's again unknown, we feel like we're going to make mistakes, and that scares us, right? Especially in the communication, especially when it's a language we don't know, and it's like, oh my god, I'm going to pronounce, I don't know, for example, me before I didn't come up with an adjective. Obviously now I've been speaking English for a long time, but I remember at first it was really daunting to speak a different language. It's like, oh my God, is this right? And you think about the grammar, and then you just get into a spiral by yourself, and you basically just do it to yourself. And that brings me to, don't isolate yourself due to language fears. There is so many people out there that, if anything, they'll be stoked that you're trying to speak their language, and it's going to be 80-90% of that, and 10% of not great people who are going to be reacting differently and even mean. And those are just people you probably don't even want to talk to be honest. So that's doing you a favor, if anything, like natural selection of who you should talk to. And then this is another thing, going into safety concerns, travel advisory, right? But again, look at the sources. So for example, I'll take some practical example. So I always track news and do my research and so on. And I do track travel advisories too, but I also take different travel advisories. So for example, if you just look at the government advisory, it's something you should check for sure. But also sometimes, and for some destinations, it's, you also have to imagine that they are putting it out there in more of the worst case scenario. Because for example, I was recently on the travel advisory from the US government, and for example, I think Germany and Spain and so on are also into the, okay, you should maybe not travel kind of category. And you're like, okay, it's not that bad, right? So in the government ones, I would say they're way stricter. So keep that in mind. And that's why I'm saying, like, just take different sources, but definitely have a look at different travel advisories. For example, like I recently, so at the beginning of the year, I went to Ecuador to do a video shoot. And everybody was telling me not to go because, I mean, it made sense from a news perspective. But then I was just talking to the people there and the people I was going to do the video shoot with, and it was actually fine. And I went and it was fine. Did you, I mean, obviously you have to be careful in general. And I just kind of learned like areas I didn't have to. There was a curfew at the time, which was fine. And I had a fantastic time and everything was absolutely fine. So by combining the knowledge of like, okay, this is kind of what I need to do because it's a particular situation, with, the locals and their support and their knowledge, it was a fantastic experience. And I'm really happy I went and I got the chance to go there. Even though if you went on only the travel advisory from a government, it was like, don't go. So very different experience from how it was portrayed, let's say, between the news and the travel advisories. So another thing that I would add here, travel advisory always combine that with also local knowledge, people who've just been, people who are actually there, and try to really connect that way, because at the end of the day, there is a lot online, but sometimes there is a lot online. And so really like being able to filter out the proper and real information, it sometimes can be hard, especially for some destinations. Another thing, and this is a bit common sense, I don't suggest to do this anyway, even in your hometown. Um, have really flash valuables, like large amount of cash, like travel with large amount of cash. I always also suggest to just withdraw money at the ATM once you land, because at least yes, you get like the bank fees, but it's way like you lose way more money by doing exchange with banks beforehand or in one of those exchange kiosks. And then yeah, just try to not have it all in one place, right? And try to hide it, and also try not to have too much with you in that sense. But yeah, flashy valuables, that's something I would say for a lot of destinations, whether it's in Europe or Latin America or Asia, like it's just something in general that really helps you being less of a target, or more safe on the road. And then that's the thing, and this also goes to, you know, being a solo female traveler, but I would say it for anybody in general. As part of your research, also check, like, are there areas that are okay in the like during the day, but you really shouldn't do it at night, right? And really like plan your trip and your days and your exploration also around that, right, with that kind of information. And last but not least, the sorry, the do's. So another thing is, especially if you're, you know, more new to it, start with shorter and closer trips, and then build up from there. When you do solo travel, really plan, stay connected to people before, during, after. Join group tours, as I said. Create more detailed itinerary to start with. Leave a bit of space for spontaneity. And as you go and as you become more confident and less, and the fears start to be more overcome, try to do less detailed itinerary, and test it out, and test what is your like what is your like own boundary, right? Your own comfortable boundary where you're still growing and learning and doing everything you want to do, but at the same time you're enjoying yourself. Visualization exercises, I mentioned it before, super important. And then having a support system is also important. So at first, you know, I'm sure you have some friends, some family members who are like as excited as you for you to go travel, to go to your next trip, or to go travel long term, and share that, and surround yourself with people that are as joyful about travel as you are or you want to be. And this is what I wanted to close this session with, because all this fears and being able to overcome fears, um, brings you to embrace the true joy of travel. And travel is so powerful. In fact, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, and narrow-mindedness. That's a quote from Mark Twain. And that alone is so powerful, and being able to live that and really have, you know, mind's eyes opened from connecting with yourself, places, nature, others, that alone is super powerful. And I'll shut up. Remember, every journey begins with a single step, so don't feel like you have to do everything at once and go up fully. Just take the first step towards what you want to achieve. And I thank you so much for today, for being here, and I'll stop sharing the screen.
All right. Thank you, Robin. That was wonderful. I loved your presentation. It was very informative. I have a few questions to ask you. And if anybody else does too, please put it on the message group chat. And before I do that, I'm going to put your links in the chat so people know where they can connect with you on your social media platforms. So there you go. I just shared it, everybody. So feel free to follow Robin and follow her travel adventures. Um, and then, so my first question to you, Robin, is at the beginning, you stated that fear is excitement without knowledge. I couldn't agree more. It's very true. I do a lot of solo travel, but every time I go on a trip, I still get anxiety. Like, for example, I just did 1 month in Asia, and I haven't been there since I left when I was 9 years old. So I had this built up anxiety right before the trip, even though I've done all this research, I've talked to all my travel friends, I've, watched videos, I still have like that, that weird feeling in your stomach. But then the minute I landed the first day in Vietnam, my love of travel kind of overcame my fear of travel and it went away. So have you experienced something similar? And if so, can you share us your story?
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing, like, I think some of those, fears, like, it's not especially what you just described about still, like, you feel like you're prepared, but you still have some sort of fear. It's still that, innate thing about you still don't know exactly what's on the other side, right? So it's almost like an innate reaction that we have as humans. So sometimes, and this is what you probably know, sometimes what you're learning by trying to overcome and dealing with this is, again, it's overcoming the fear. Some of this doesn't mean that it necessarily like cancels it out, but it's about knowing how to deal when this come up. So for me, for example, like, this was a while ago. I was going to Costa Rica. I was in between university years, and it was another like solo backpacking trip I was gonna do, and I was so excited to go. And I was also gonna volunteer, so I was excited about that too. And and I don't know, it was super weird. It was like a weird thing where it was just the day before taking the flight, I was like, "Oh my god, what if something goes wrong?" And I think it always happens, and we can't really stop necessarily those things. But then I guess like you just ask yourself, I was like, how much do you want to go? Like, how much do you want to actually see if that's just true or not, right? And that's exactly what you said. And I think by doing it a lot too, where you're like just doing it at least once, and then you see that, okay, I felt like that, but the moment I landed, all these great things happen. So you realize that that fear isn't necessarily real, or it doesn't equal reality. And even experiencing that once and being able to, shut up that fear at least once so that you can see what's truly on the other side, that is a great reminder. And since then, that's the reminder I've given myself. It's like, oh, remember that time that even though I've been traveling most of my life, you still got it here and there, because every country is different, every destination different, every experience is different. So the certainty is never there, really, right? It's more about by adding experiences and continuing experience of traveling, you just learn to deal with coping with yourself, your own thoughts, and you know exactly what to do, and also rephrasing those, right? It's like, oh, okay, I'm afraid, but really, is there really a reason? Like, is there really evidence for me to be afraid right now? And really confronting your thought with that evidence, or more so lack of evidence, can really help.
No, that's great. Thank you. Also, you mentioned something about conquering the language barriers, which I I totally can relate because I am from the Philippines, but everyone when I travel to like South America, Mexico, anywhere, people think I'm Latino and I speak Spanish, but unfortunately I don't. But the biggest thing, I'm not afraid going to a country where I don't know the language, because to me, it's not just about what you say that to be able to communicate to others. It's also like just, your reaction, just your smiling and being kind and the energy and the aura you give off to people. So whether you're like lost and can't find the bus that you're looking for, or can't remember, what street your hotel is, as long as you like ask somebody for help, even if you don't speak the same language, if you ask them in like in a kind, nice manner, nine 10% of the 100% of the time, they will help you out. So do you feel the same way?
Yeah, no, that's very true. Like, I've definitely been in situations where like neither of us knew the language of each other. And that's the thing, like, again, that nonverbal part of piece. And it's beautiful. And I think that is really what, like, that's really how I find travel can really help us as a society in that sense. Because by traveling and finding yourself in those situations where, again, you're going beyond language, you're going beyond culture, right? Um, you realize that there is really like that denominator that is just as humans, right? And that is also why travel creates such empathy, right? It really does. It
Yes.
really, like, there's a lot of psychological studies around it that are super interesting, and it's something I love to talk about, which is the psychology of travel, right? And so you really learn, like, there's something that changes in you because of these experiences. And I agree. I think, to be honest, like, there is way more, and actually anything I can think of right now that is people kindness, people helping, people seeing that, whether I or me and whoever was there were in difficulties, and they wanted to help. And then at the same time, when I see something like that myself, whether I'm traveling or I'm, even hiking somewhere, whatever, and you see somebody in need, again, the empathy levels like just changes completely, because you tend to learn to really put yourself in other people's shoes, and then because of the kindness you receive from others, you basically start learning to be kind too. And that's why it breaks my heart, like there's also, I mean, we're talking about all the good things. It's not, talking, with the, I call it the pink glasses on it. Unfortunately, there also are bad stories out there, and it breaks my heart because, also as humans, like if there is, like, let's say you have one negative experience and 10 positive, you're going to hold on to that negative experience and
Yeah,
memory more than
unfortunately, yeah.
positive, which is very unfortunate, right? But I would say I agree with you, and a lot of people, I talk to, like, who also travel a lot, it's more kindness than none, and you really can see that it has no borders in a way, and I think that's really beautiful.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Yeah, you definitely become more empathetic when you travel, and then it's wonderful to learn like the different cultures too, because more people are willing to help you than take advantage of you. At least from my experiences. And I have one more question for you, Robin. And again, if anybody else has questions, please, write it, put it in the group chat. My last question is: you talked about safety concerns, and especially as a female solo traveler, you have to put that into consideration.
Yeah.
And my motto is, anytime I travel by myself, is fake it till you make it. So even if you're walking back to the hotel and it's starting to get dark and you're feeling anxious and you're feeling like, oh goodness, this isn't good, and you feel as though perhaps people are following you, pretend like you live there, pretend like you're one of the locals, because if they can read, other people can read your energy, and if they feel like you can be taken advantage of, they will. you know so what other safety, I know you hinted on a few safety concerns, but what do you think about that fake it till you make it mentality?
I would say, yeah, that's a good one. And that's the thing, like, oh my God, could chat about this forever. But it
Hmm.
is true. And it is true that sometimes you have to pretend in a way. And it's not just like even pretending like from a feeling perspective, right? Because also, again, if you are afraid and then you concentrate on feeling afraid, you're gonna get more afraid. And then you're gonna get to the point that you're like, okay, I can really go back now.
Yeah.
Right. So in a way, faking it is also good for you. Right. To be like, okay, I'm gonna be fine. I'm just gonna, power through. I think there's a couple of things. It's also literally pretending to do certain things. So, for example, one thing that I do, when, like I feel like something is off, or like again, it's a bit darker and then you don't know the area, whatever. If it happens that that's the case, I also always like just literally like pretend to be on the phone. Like if I'm passing
I've done
somebody.
that.
So
Yep.
yeah, like pretending to be on the phone, as in, hey, yeah, see you there, whatever. Now, again, sometimes with the language, like you have to be careful to not show that you're like, speaking, I don't know, English, and then you're like in the middle of it, like, okay, you're a tourist, right? So you have to watch out. But if that's the case, that's something you can do, then definitely like just being on the phone, or even like sometimes I'm faking the call, but I actually have something open, like I have somebody I can actually call open
Mhm.
just in case.
Yes.
And the other thing is, which sounds, I'm gonna say it probably in a way wrong, but don't super look like a tourist in certain areas. So, for example, actually, this was in San Francisco, and I was passing this area, and it was, there were a lot of like, junkies in the area, and I knew that especially like they would, it was famous for also like stealing phones and stuff. So, like if you walk around like this with Google Maps. So what I did was I had no idea exactly. I knew a direction, but I didn't really know where I had to go. But I just hit it, and I just like walked extremely confident as I was like a local. And again, it is fake it till you make it. Like in a way, sometimes you have to act the part. And so act
Hmm.
like a local, pretend that you live there, feel that you live there, so that you can actually pretend, right? When you feel something, you can also, uh, kind of like channel that feeling into, acting and reality, right? And so I went, and then it was to protect my phone, right? So that it wasn't as stealable. But also then I didn't want to give the idea like, okay, you can like talk to me, right? And in general, like I'm super friendly, I'm super open, I love to chat to people. That's what I love about, um being here is like talking to strangers and stuff. But then I also have my, serious don't mess with me, don't talk to me, don't approach me face. And I
Exactly.
think
Yeah.
that's what I meant also as a, solo female traveler. I think like there's definitely a bit more of those, scenarios where you have to kind of, in a way, change, pretend, fake it till
Mhm.
you. Yeah.
Yeah, one time actually you reminded me about your phone. I was in Barcelona with my friend slash roommate, and I was trying to guide us to our next destination. And I was so busy on my phone trying to find where we're supposed to go that I didn't realize a man on the bike was following us. And my friend was like, "Hey, Cheryl, this guy's been following us for a few blocks." And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" So I literally instantly I turned around, put on my video and started recording him and said, "Excuse me, sir, is there anything we can help you with?" And the moment we made eye contact and he knew that we were videoing him, he left and left us and we never saw him again. And that was just like instinct. I didn't even I don't know, I guess because I always like situational awareness. You always have to be. And in that moment, I wasn't aware because I was trying to find the location, but luckily my friend was, and so together we were able to solve that crazy problem.
Yeah, no, that's right. Sometimes yeah, you have to act differently, right? And then you just like realize, oh, I just did that. But that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the following is always like yeah,
Yeah,
not
you got to
a
be aware because that happened to me
very
in
good way.
Malta too. I had some guy following me, and then I noticed it and noticed it, and then finally I stopped to pretend like I was looking at a menu, and then I
Yeah.
looked and then started talking to a server, and then looked at him, and then he finally like left. So yeah, so again, be aware of your surroundings, men or women. You just
Yep,
never know.
100%. I totally agree.
All right. So does anyone else have any other questions?
Yeah, I'm actually super curious to know if anything came out from that exercise of the fears. If I mean, you guys don't have to chat, but like even putting it in the chat, if anything resonated or if it was completely different fears. I think it's very important, and I think it's important to also talk about those, and because the majority of the time we also hold on to a fear because if we think it's like, oh my God, it's just me, and then we realize no, that's actually like, there's so many other people, and then just talking about it and seeing how people deal with it can really help as well. So I don't know who feels like sharing that, but yeah, I would love to hear if yeah there was any particular fear or anything that you found resonating or helpful.
Everyone's quiet tonight. It's all right. If it does
That's
come
fine.
up and you want to send Robin a message through her social media platforms, I shared that with you guys already. And I'm also going to drop the links for the different places that you can connect with the Matic network. So let me do that right now. Save these. Feel free to message. Um, Again on our website. Follow more of our upcoming virtual events and also read and check out any of the upcoming tours that we got going on because there's a lot of amazing places that the TNN group is going to. All right, any last words, Robin, before we say goodbye to everybody?
Ah, no, just I really appreciate everybody taking the time. I know it can be late in some time zones right now. So I really appreciate that. I hope this inspired you to go on your next trip, to, explore even more of the world or start exploring the world wherever you are on your journey, and knowing that you're not alone.
Oh,
Thank you.
we did. I'm like, we have a message, but they just said thank you, Cheryl and
No,
Robin.
appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys. We hope you safe travels and can't wait to see your next destination. You too, Robin.
Thank you.
All
Bye.
right, bye everybody.